Hey gang, David Gupple, Thinker Farmer here. This is part 3 of a series, Cornerstones of Management, and this applies to farming business and things in general. Somebody had asked some questions and they wanted to know what were some of the nuts and bolts of how I manage situations and circumstances. And so that's what this video is about. If you haven't watched part 1 or part 2, go back a few episodes, well, maybe more than a few, 5 or 10, and watch part 1 and part 2. Otherwise, everything here may not make sense. But with that being said, this is part 3, and this is essentially about managing, whether it's on a farm or a ranch. And what I'm explaining here applies to farm businesses. It applies to any business, really. It applies to self-management, time management, and we're going to get into some nuts and bolts of some different things here. So, overview. A lot of people ask about different tools and things I use to make things work. And so I'm going to go over some tools people are going to be very familiar with. Others, they may not. The thing about management tools is a lot of management tools, they don't have to be things you can actually see or visualize with your hands. They're ideas and they're things you use in your mind. A sheet of paper can be the greatest management tool ever. It just depends how you use it and how you organize it. So anyway, everybody uses a calendar. Calendars are great. I use them. Calendars are really, they're good for a few things. They're good for honoring commitments. They're good for scheduling things in advance. They're good for planning and laying things out. Calendars for me are an okay tool. I don't use them as heavily as I used to. I use them for honoring commitments and coordinating schedules with others. But as time has passed and as you begin to do more, calendars, they don't have enough space. You've got a tiny little, 2-inch or 1.5-inch square place on a calendar. And they're too big to carry with you most of the time. And so they get left at your desk. And a farmer can't sit at his desk all day. He doesn't get his work done. And so if you know Greg Judy, you know he raves. Maybe he doesn't rave, but he talks about day timers. And I'm a big believer in day timers. Prior to day timers, I just used small notepads. And they just had sheets of paper, but I would put a date for every day, and sometimes I'd use two or three sheets. A day timer, they might cost a little more than the cheaper notepads, but they're worth it. The paper's a lot more durable. The outside cover, it works a lot better. It keeps everything organized by the month. I think 1 year of day timers, and it comes with a whole packet of other useful stuff. 1 year of day timers is about $55. It's probably the best $55 you can spend. And the day timer already comes with some organization in it. It's pretty self-explanatory. I won't get down into that too much just for now. But I will say, if you haven't got a day timer, you need to get one. And you've got to protect your day timers. So you either need to have a coat pocket or a shirt pocket where you keep it, and you need to have a few spare pens. And I always keep 3 pens with me. My pens get broken because I don't have pockets in all my shirts. But I put them in my day timer in a heavy duty plastic bag. This is waterproof, and it's I think this one cost $35-40. I got it from Duluth Trading Center. And it has lasted now for about 2 years. I'll probably get another year or 2 of use out of that. I will make the observation to y'all that I use an old Ziploc bag for my phone. I use a heavy-duty Ziploc bag for my day timer. That tells you how important day timers are. You always keep extra pens with you because one pen will break completely, or it will. You'll have to give one out to a friend, or you'll drop it. So if 2 is 1, 1 is none. Always keep extra pens with you. So now getting into a little more of the detail of how I manage and keep track of things, I want to introduce y'all to this book here. It's called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. It's written by David Allen. called the Personal Productivity Guru. This guy is wouldn't be known to most farmers. He's essentially a business professional for more or less the corporate world. But this book has a lot of good information for farmers. Hopefully I won't make this video too long explaining it. The whole book is worth reading, but I'm going to read a very brief section from chapter 2. It's called Getting Control of Your Life, the 5 Stages of Mastering Workflow. And I'm just going to read off the 5 different parts, and then we'll get into how, essentially, what a CEO or a corporate person would do to manage workflow. And I'm not saying everything about corporations or how corporations structure things is the way your farm's going to work, but there's a lot of business savvy that happens in the corporate world in order to get things done. There's also a lot of lack of common sense. But if you marry the common sense that comes in farming with a lot of the corporate tips and tricks, you're gonna turn what would be a Ford Pinto or a Honda Civic into a Cadillac or a Chevy Camaro, and that's what you need to do. So there's 5 essentially steps to managing workflow. And workflow management is simply about getting things done. That's what the title of the book is. Number 1, you collect things that command or demand your attention. 2, you process what they mean and what to do about them. 3, you organize the results. 4, you review the options. And then 5, you execute or do what needs to be done. So on this page, one of the big dominant diagrams in the whole book is how to manage stuff. I don't know if we have time. I'll just briefly go over it. Stuff comes into your in basket throughout the day on a farm. Things are constantly happening. You're seeing work that needs to be done. You're getting phone calls. You're getting input from different people. Stuff comes in and you have to make decisions about it. Pretty basic here. The diagram shows that in a lot of things, you can just say no to it and discard it. Other things you have to deal with, and those become projects. Some things you have to plan out. Some things you make next action steps on, and there's different options for it. I'd like to keep videos brief and to the point, so I'm not going to break down the whole process here. He literally takes chapters to break this all down, but I'm going to try to summarize more or less in basically 1 minute the thrust of the book. Here's the deal. If for a corporate executive and also for a farm businessman, you always have lots of things that are happening in your day, lots of input from different people and communications. You can't possibly work and stay focused and get things done, because if you don't have a way to write all these things down and a way to process all this information, the reason is your brain RAM can only handle so many things. And when somebody tells you you've got a dentist appointment this afternoon, another person tells you you've got a fence project that has to be done by the end of the week, another person tells you that you've got to order hay to be ready for 2 months from now, another person tells you an animal's sick. If you're in the epicenter of all this farm management and you've got all those things coming in and many, many more, and you've got a life you have to live too, and you're the farm manager, you're where the buck stops, you need to not only write these things down, but you also need to go through them consistently, and you need a mechanism or an organizing process that you've put in place so that the information gets sorted into all of its appropriate boxes and gets dealt with. Some things you can just say no to, but farm management and business management in the corporate world isn't that simple. So I don't rigidly adhere to this book. I've used it. I used to be more of a rigid adherent to it. It really depends on the farm management position, how many things you're having to handle, and how exacting you have to be, how much your job depends on it. But the more important your job, the more you're going to have to manage workflow. Anyway, the book, there's a lot more I could say about the book, but I'm not going to get into all that. This video has already gotten to 10 minutes. What I am going to explain is I'm going to show, and I'll have to put my phone down. It's locked me out. I'm going to show on my laptop. Somebody asked, how do you organize all your information in your day timer? And how do you keep track of all the information? Because 2 pages, especially if you've got a lot going on, is often bare minimum. So I'm going to show you what I do. Hang on a second. So in my computer, I have probably 5 to 10 for all the different places I've worked, what I call notebook organization files. And I've been doing this more than the past 2 years that I've had day timers. And essentially, I have all of the, I won't go into all the details in this video, and this is my last, but I have every single category, whether it's communications that has to happen, the type of communications, reminders, specific tasks I have to do, things I just want to remember. I have it all written down, all typed up. And I'll be honest, my information is not as organized as I would like it to be. And this is, now, I will be honest with y'all, this is an actual document, and I'm a private guy to a certain degree, so I'm not going to share everything with it, but this is an actual document from one of my farm management jobs, and I forget how long, it was 7 pages of just stuff, just items to be done, and I used it for 2 years, I think, well, maybe a whole year executing things. Anyway, I'm not going to belabor that, but my point there is every week I would have what I would call a weekly review. It's something I learned about in this book, and it would take me about, initially it would take an hour. Eventually it got to where it only took half an hour every week on Monday, and I would go through the last week, more or less, of things that I'd written down in my notebook, and I would check off things that were done. I would check off things that had been dealt with, but anything that hadn't been dealt with would get reorganized into the Word documents and written down. And you can make it as detailed as you need, or you can make it as simple as you want. But what I've found is, for the long haul, the day timer can handle most of it, but the more you're trying to manage and keep track of, especially longer term projects, it helps to have some place to put the important things from the day timer, because a day timer has so many sheets of paper, and you can race around trying to find one detail in it, and it works. But if you're consistently going through every single week and sorting your information, you're going to find everything. And people are going to be able to depend on you. That's the biggest thing. If you're, as a farm manager, if you can't be depended on, you're not going to hold your job. There's a lot more I wanted to explain, but I'm going to keep this video, try to keep it under 15 minutes. So one more thing I'm going to share. Somebody asked, I think, how part of the explanation process is, how do you organize information in your day timer or in a notepad that can then, for your day? So how would you structure your day if you're using what's in this book, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity? If you're actually doing workflow management, what does your day look like when you start it? So this is a makeshift example, because I'm a private guy. I'm not going to share all my secrets. I'm not going to share everything in my day timer. Day timers are personal as well as business for me. So right here I have essentially just 2 sheets of paper, and I'm using them to break on the left-hand side. That's what I'm going to concentrate on. I broke it down into 8 categories, and you'll notice that I don't have complete words, and my writing is not really legible. It's more like a doctor's, but I've abbreviated words. So this upper left-hand category is IMP and COM. That stands for important communication, and I wrote, as an example, grazing days left. So at the top of any sheet in a day timer, or if you're just going to use a notepad, you need to put the most important things, and communication trumps everything, so important communication comes first. On the right here, the top right box, it's got COM, which stands for communication, and I put Friday night party. So maybe there was somebody I wanted to tell about a Friday night party. Now let me just give this, maybe this isn't self-evident. You don't need to write out every single detail. If you're sorting through information every week, your brain is going to remember things better, and keywords is all you need. So in a day timer, you don't need to write down a full sentence. All you need is 1 or 2 keywords. And I can go on and break down the rest of these categories, but you've got important tasks. That's things you have to get done to, well, not necessarily you have to get done today, but they're important things. And I left it blank. But over here you have important or urgent tasks, and those are often appointments or commitments. Down here I have projects that need to be worked on, and I wrote as an example, maybe a creek is washing out and you've got to, you're going to be putting some rock in, or maybe you're putting in a rock skirt. Key thoughts, and I wrote new polywire configuration, and then I just drew a stick figure diagram, which doesn't mean anything to the average person, but for me, when I'm working on a project, 5 or 6 lines is all I need to stimulate my brain to remember an idea I had. And then in the bottom here, you have future projects. So anyway, I'm not going to get into all the weeds here. The video's been 16 minutes, but you can see I've got 7 categories on this whole day, and I've already written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things in a bunch of different categories, and I've structured it out so that, I mean, there's enough space on that page to write at least another 15 things. So I can more or less put 20 or 30 things on a sheet of paper that's 2.5 inches by 4 or 5 inches, not even that, 4 inches, on an itty bitty day timer on 1/2 sheet. I can put down 20 or so items of things that have to be told to people, things that have to be done. I can categorize them by importance. And what that allows me to do too is through the day, if I've got a list of the main tasks, the actual bulk of the things I'm getting done, it's a hit list. And as things happen in the day, this organization structure allows me to manage and strategically pivot through the day. Anyway, it's easier to explain in person. I don't know if that made sense to everybody, but that's kind of a tip of the iceberg for how I manage things when I have a lot going on. And it doesn't necessarily make you faster initially, but it makes you accurate. And when you build confidence on this, you move through the day more smoothly, and you're never doing damage control. That's the biggest thing, because when you don't communicate or when you don't get done the things that need to be get done at the appointed times, that just creates stress through your whole team, and it creates stress for you because you know you're flying by the seat of your pants. And you're not managing on the front end, you're managing from the rear. As a manager, you always want to be on the front end of things. So with that, gang, hopefully that's kind of some of the nuts and bolts. Hopefully that helps some people. With that, blessings for the journey, and keep it real.